I still remember the exact moment I froze. It was a Wednesday evening, around 8:15 p.m. I had wandered downstairs from my study to grab a glass of water when my phone buzzed. Linda had left it on the kitchen table. I thought nothing of it. But when the screen lit up, I caught a preview. "I wish I was with you right now." My heart slammed. I looked around, no one was there. The empty kitchen felt suddenly alien. All those years of late dinners, shared routines, the feeling that we were in this life together, suddenly fragile. I picked it up, hands trembling. The messaging app showed a thread with a name I didn't know at first glance, Evan. Over the past weeks, I'd noticed Linda creeping downstairs late, burying her phone under pillows, claiming extra work. But I chalked it up to stress, non-profit budgets, volunteer deadlines, aging parents. Now I saw the screenshot, flirty lines, soft affirmations, plans whispered in text. My throat tightened. I flipped the phone over, locked it. Then walked back upstairs to my study, heart pounding, mind racing. I told myself, don't jump to conclusions. But I knew I couldn't ignore it. Years ago, in our early 40s, Linda and I had moved to Willow Creek to settle. Our careers were stable. Our 2 kids were born. We believed in mutual respect, in shared dreams. We assumed the long haul. In those years, life was generous. We traveled. We built a modest home. We navigated crises, health scares in parents, job changes, teenage storms. Linda was my confidant. I was proud to have found a steady partner. Stability was our anchor. Yet over time, something shifted, the way shadows gather at dusk. I began to see cracks, her distant silences, her new late meetings, her reluctant explanations. I asked once if she was unhappy. She said, "I just need time." I let it slide. I told myself midlife weariness, less spark but still love. I buried suspicions. But tonight, that message shattered the quiet. I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Questions spun, who is Evan? When did this begin? How long has she been writing these words? Is it emotional only, or more? By dawn I resolved I would not be passive. Tomorrow, I would follow a clue. I would see what truth lies behind the screen. Late next morning, Linda left for her volunteer day at the local community center. I kissed her cheek, but it felt foreign. I watched her drive away, the car's tail disappearing around the corner. After she left, I sat in my study. I opened my laptop. I searched for Evan plus workshop plus nonprofit in the region. I sifted through directories. I looked for names in recent event programs where Linda volunteered. I found a name match. Evan had led a recent regional grant writing workshop that Linda attended. He was a consultant in that niche. A small professional world. My heart sank. The distance between them had likely been physical, not just emotional. I printed the workshop schedule. I found photos, Linda and Evan in group shots. Her smile was brighter. Her body leaned toward him in shots. I stared at those images, aching with betrayal. Throughout the day, I replayed all the small things I'd dismissed. The business calls late at night. The hush behind doors. The extra drive time. By evening, I had my plan, get incontrovertible proof, screenshots, timestamps, maybe location logs. Build my case. Then demand answers. When Linda walked in later that night, she hummed as she emptied her bag. She seemed tired, but ordinary. I forced a neutral tone. "Hey. How was your day at the community center?" She didn't meet my eyes. "Fine. Normal." I wanted to grab her, shake her, plead for honesty. Instead I nodded, walked away, and glared at the phone on the table. She paused, half turning, sensing something. but I kept silent. I'd give her the moment, but I'd strike soon. Tomorrow I'd dig deeper. I was already past denial. Betrayal was no longer a theory. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Linda was still asleep, her breathing steady beside me. I stared at the ceiling for a few minutes, listening to the faint creak of the house settling. My chest felt tight. Every breath I took felt like it had to work its way through a wall of tension. I didn't want to snoop. I really didn't. But I had to know what I was up against. By the time Linda got up to shower, I was already at my desk, pretending to review emails. I heard the water running. Then silence. That gave me maybe 10 minutes. I walked to the kitchen where her phone sat on the charger. She rarely locked it, part of our old trust, I guess. That trust had died quietly, probably around the same time Evan entered our lives. I unlocked it. I didn't have to search long. The messaging app was right there. I scrolled through the recent conversations, hands shaking. The thread with Evan was pinned to the top. My stomach churned. There were no graphic pictures or dirty talk, nothing like that. But the intimacy was unmistakable. Things like, "Wish I could have stayed in bed with you this morning. Just your laugh gets me through the day. I can't stop thinking about last weekend. The way you touched my hand at the cafe. He'll never know. You deserve better, Lynn." That last one made my ears ring. He'll never know. They'd met up. More than once, apparently. And from the way they wrote to each other, it wasn't just a fling. It was affection. Familiarity. They had rhythms, inside jokes, code names. This wasn't some office flirtation. It was a second relationship. I screenshot as much as I could, sent it to a backup folder on my laptop, then deleted the previews. I put the phone right back where it was. By the time Linda came downstairs, fresh and dressed in jeans and a casual blouse, I was already sipping coffee like nothing had happened. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. "Thinking about the garage. I need to fix that left hinge on the cabinet." She nodded, half listening, her mind clearly elsewhere. Maybe on Evan. Flashback to a few months earlier. Linda had signed up for a 2-day nonprofit leadership workshop in a town about 2 hours from Willow Creek. She told me about it casually one night while we were watching TV. "It's something through the regional network. Grant training, donor strategies, all that," she'd said. I could use the brush up. I didn't think twice. She was always good about keeping her skills sharp. "You want me to come down with you and make a weekend out of it?" I asked. She hesitated. "It's mostly seminars. I don't think you'd enjoy sitting through all of it." So I stayed back. She left that Friday morning in our blue sedan, suitcase packed, hair neatly tied up. She called that evening around 8:30 to say the group had gone out for dinner and she was tired, would just read in her room and crash early. I remember feeling proud of her, at the time. She came back Sunday afternoon in a light mood. Gave me a quick hug, handed me a keychain souvenir from the conference hotel. But when I looked at her, I noticed something. Not guilt. Not regret. It was more like brightness. Like someone who'd had fun. That was the weekend she met Evan. I looked him up that afternoon. Evan Taylor. Independent consultant. Former adjunct at a local college. Specialized in nonprofit funding strategies. Divorced. No kids. Lives about 45 minutes from us, in a neighboring suburb. His online presence was clean. A LinkedIn profile. A few workshop bias. He looked like the kind of guy who quoted poems on lunch breaks and wore earth-tone scarves in spring. In his late 50s, salt and pepper beard, soft eyes. The kind of face you'd expect to see leading a retreat or selling used books in a corner shop. He was everything I wasn't. Emotional. Expressive. He wrote her little haikus in those messages. Told her how her voice lingered in his mind. What bothered me most wasn't that she was physical with someone else. It was that she'd shared the soft parts of herself, the poetic, laughing, vulnerable side, with him. That used to be mine. A few days after I'd read the messages, I started testing the waters. We were sitting on the back porch, drinking tea. I waited until she set her cup down and said casually, "You ever hear from anyone from that workshop you did in August?" She blinked. "A few folks, yeah. We're all connected through a group chat. Anybody stand out?" She looked at me, her smile tight. "Why?" I shrugged. "Just curious." "Mark," her voice had a warning in it. "Why are you asking that?" I stared at her for a long moment. "No reason. Just making conversation." She looked down, then back up. "I'm tired of the silence between us lately. If there's something bothering you, just say it." Oh, there was something bothering me all right. But I wasn't ready yet. I wanted her to offer it first. To have enough courage to confess. Instead, she reached for her cup and muttered, "We all have things we don't talk about." And right there, I knew she wasn't going to come clean on her own. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I sat at my desk, lights dimmed, rereading the saved screenshots. Their messages were peppered with hearts and smiles. Plans to meet for coffee. A weekend they almost booked but too risky. One message stood out. "He'll be gone Friday night again, right? We can do the lake place." So she'd planned around me. Used my absence. Maybe even lied about events or obligations to make time for Evan. I started pulling our calendars together, her trips, my schedule, time away. The patterns were too tight to be coincidence. This wasn't a lapse. This was deliberate. Friday came. She said she had a donor dinner for the nonprofit board and wouldn't be back until late. I nodded, played along. After she left, I called a contact, an old friend from college who now worked in private IT security. I asked if he could help me set up discrete access to backup syncs from her messaging app, purely cloud-stored, nothing physical. He said it would take a day or two. In the meantime, I checked our shared financial records. Sure enough, two unusual charges stood out, small, but odd, a room booked at a roadside inn an hour away, and a charge for dinner at a rustic lakeside restaurant. Neither matched up with any events she'd told me about. My hands clenched. It wasn't just emotional. That weekend, I stayed quiet. Observed her. Linda returned from her dinner a little after 11 p.m., hair tousled, cheeks flushed like she'd been outside. Said it was cold by the time they finished dessert. I nodded. Was it a good turnout? Small, but productive. She didn't look me in the eye when she said it. I knew then, it was time to confront. But not in anger. Not yet. I wanted her to tell me. And if she didn't, I would burn it all down, methodically. I spent that Sunday morning in quiet observation mode. Linda was in the kitchen making banana pancakes, humming along to an old playlist while flipping them with almost surgical precision. To a stranger, we probably looked like any long-married couple enjoying a peaceful weekend. But every moment felt like a lie stretched too thin. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching her. She wore her favorite weekend sweatshirt, the one with the faded green print from our Yellowstone trip. She looked comfortable. At ease. How could someone live in Betrayal and still whistle on a Sunday morning? That question echoed in my mind as I replayed the puzzle pieces. I didn't know how long the affair had been going on in full. But I had a decent theory now. It had started emotional, those late-night chats after the workshop. Flirty messages, little secrets. And at some point in the past couple of months, it crossed a line. I watched her lean against the counter, checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She smiled faintly at the screen. Then quickly locked it. That was all I needed. That half-second smile. That instinct to hide. Monday morning, my contact came through. I got limited access to the messaging app backups. Not full messages, nothing criminal, but enough to see timestamps, message lengths, and photo indicators. I traced several flurries of messages that aligned perfectly with nights she'd claimed to be at events or out late at the center. I also saw locations pinged to coffee shops in areas she had no reason to be in, near Evan's listed address. And then, one that made my chest cave in. A photo marker, sent at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, captioned, "You wore this scarf just for me?" There was no image attached in the sync, just the metadata. But it confirmed what I feared. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. My hands were ice cold. This was beyond flirtation. That night, I decided to push. Linda and I were doing dishes together. She was humming again, something soft from the 70s. I dried a plate, then said, evenly, "You ever feel like we're off lately?" She paused mid-rinse. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Like something's shifted. Distance. Secrets." She kept her eyes on the sink. "Well, that happens after 30 years. Things change. You changed." Now she looked at me, eyes narrowing just slightly. "What are you trying to say?" "I think you're lying to me," I said calmly. "And I think you're seeing someone." The silence that followed was deafening. She didn't deny it. Not at first. She just stared, frozen, hands still wet. I stepped closer. I saw the messages. "I know about Evan." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down. "Then, you were snooping." Not denial. Not outrage. Just deflection. I laughed, bitterly. "That's what you've got? After everything?" She pulled the dish rag from the counter, gripped it like a lifeline. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It started, just talking. I was lonely, Mark. So you turned to some stranger who writes you poetry?" "He listens," she said, almost in a whisper. "He makes me feel seen." That stung. I looked her in the eyes. "I've seen you every day for 30 years. Paid every bill. Showed up for every doctor visit. Every holiday. Every panic call from the kids. And now I'm not enough because I don't write haikus over coffee?" Linda shook her head, tears brimming. "You stopped talking to me. You don't look at me anymore. We've been drifting for years. We drifted because you stopped trying. You built a whole new life in your messages. And now you're going to sit here and blame me?" She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "I never meant for it to become physical." That word, meant, made my stomach turn. "But it did, didn't it?" She nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "We didn't sleep in the same bed that night. I went to the guest room, lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every memory now felt tainted. Our wedding dance. The first time we walked through the house when it was still empty. The birth of our daughter, Linda holding her in the hospital while I brought her coffee with too much cream. I had no roadmap for this. This wasn't just cheating. It was conscious substitution. She had replaced me emotionally and physically, yet still kept me around for convenience, for reputation, for appearances. The next morning, I left early. Took a drive. Went to the lake trail where I used to hike with our son when he was in high school. I needed to clear my head. I sat on a bench, stared at the water, and thought, what do I want now? Divorce? Possibly. Revenge? That thought lingered longer. That evening, Linda came into my study. No makeup, hair tied back. She looked worn out. I don't want to lose everything, she said quietly. You should have thought of that before, I replied, not even looking up. She stepped forward. I'm willing to cut things off. No contact. Therapy. Whatever it takes. I finally looked at her. I don't trust a word you say right now. She nodded, biting her lip. I understand. I stood up. I'm not deciding anything yet. But I'm not pretending we are fine. You want to stay under this roof, there are rules. Starting now. Her voice trembled. What kind of rules? No contact with Evan. No late-night texting. No private passwords. And you agree to sign a postnup. If this happens again, everything goes to me, house, savings, pension. You leave with nothing. She blinked. You serious? As a heart attack. I don't even know if that's legal. Then get a lawyer. I already have one. That last part was a lie, but it landed hard. Linda sat down slowly on the edge of the couch. You've really thought this through? No, I said. I'm thinking it through now. Every day. Every minute. Later that night, when I passed her phone on the table, I glanced at it. She deleted the messaging app. But I wasn't naive. That meant nothing. People like Evan don't disappear with a click. Not when there's unfinished business. Not when the emotional umbilical cord is still warm. I needed to be 2 steps ahead. So I started planning. Quietly. Carefully. If she broke those rules, even once, I'd be ready. And Evan? He wasn't getting off free either. I told myself I wanted answers. What I hadn't admitted was that I also wanted control. The rules had been set, and no contact with Evan, no private passwords, no secret accounts. I watched Linda like a man watching a slow leak. But watching wasn't enough. I needed to burn the leak out, find the main pipe. So I did the next thing a man in my shoes does, I looked for the other half of the story. I called the conference hotel and asked innocuous questions about rooming lists. I phoned the lake restaurant and feigned gratitude while someone described bookings. I trolled attendee photos again, looking for a shadow, a hand, anything that suggested the closeness I now knew existed. Then I reached out to Evan. I wanted to see him once. Face to face. Not through text or cryptic "we need to talk" messages. I set up a meeting at a small cafe halfway between Willow Creek and his town. It was the kind of place with mismatched chairs and a bulletin board full of local flyers. I picked it because it was public and because Evan would feel comfortable, he'd be in his element, coaching, advising, leaning in with the soft charm he used to disarm people. He showed up 5 minutes late, a paper cup of coffee in one hand, another in his other hand as if he'd been on the move. Up close, he was older than his photos suggested. Worn lines at the eyes. But his voice had the same warm cadence I'd read in the messages. "Mark," he said, offering a hand. I didn't reach. I sat down across from him and put a printout of message excerpts on the table. He went still for a beat before his fingers closed around the cup like it was suddenly the only thing steady in the room. "I'm not here to cause more pain," he said. "If that's what you think?" "I know what I read," I interrupted. "You were writing to my wife. You met at a workshop. You met at a cafe. You met at the lake. You wrote her late at night. You made plans around my absence." His face tightened. "I didn't know she." "You didn't know she was married?" I asked, soft but sharp. That you were cozying up to a married woman? He looked at me then, and for the first time, what I saw in his eyes wasn't charm. It was surprise. Maybe even guilt. She told me she wasn't happy, he said. That she felt invisible. I listened. So you became her safe place, I said. Her secret. He flinched. That's not how I'd put it. I didn't set out to steal anyone's life. People don't plan to ruin households, I said. People don't schedule how they'll lie. He put his hand over the printouts and leaned forward. Look, I can stop. I can end it. I like Linda. I care about her. But if this is between you and me, I'll step back. I watched him decide whether to be the kind of man who steps back or the kind who keeps leaning in. You'll stop contact with her. Tonight. No calls. No messages. No meeting places. If I find evidence you're still in touch. You'll do what? He asked. I'd rehearsed 1,000 replies. I settled on, I'll make sure things are on paper. I'll talk to a lawyer. I'll make sure everything she relinquishes becomes a legal promise. He nodded slowly, as if the world was suddenly more fragile than it had been 5 minutes earlier. We left the cafe without raising voices. That night, when I told Linda about the meeting, she flinched as if she'd been slapped. You met him? She asked. I did. He agreed to stop contact. She closed her eyes. I asked him to. You asked him to meet me? She opened her eyes, wet and honest. He wanted to be fair. Fair. The word tasted hollow. But there was more in those eyes than I'd expected, regret, perhaps. Or fear. For a week, the house was a valley between two storms. Linda moved like a ghost, polite and withdrawn. She didn't reach for my hand at night. She kept her answers short. I kept my distance, and watched. A few nights later, I came home to find the front door unlocked. The porch light was on. Inside, the living room smelled faintly of perfume, familiar, but not mine. I followed the scent to the guest room and stopped dead. On the bed lay a scarf. A scarf I recognized from that Thursday photo metadata. Green threads with a worn tassel. I picked it up with a paper towel, as if it were evidence in a lab. When Linda walked in, she froze. Where did you find that? She asked. In the guest room. She went pale. It's not mine. It was left here. It might have been, she started, then stopped. You lied, I said, the word small and precise. She dropped her head. I stayed. He asked me to. He said he needed me. Needed you. She scoffed, a sound that broke. It was complicated. I think you and I have been keeping each other safe for so long that when someone else showed me heat, I ran. Heat, I repeated. You ran to his bed. It didn't start like that, she whispered. It started with dinners and late-night talks. It became real. Real enough to leave a scarf in my guest room? Her face crumpled. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared of losing everything. You wanted to keep everything and also keep a second life, I said. It felt too clinical to say it that way, but I needed the words honest and cold. You chose both. She looked at me then with an expression so hollow that, for a second, I felt pity. But pity doesn't erase betrayal. You said you'd stop contact, I told her. He agreed in the cafe. She nodded. He did. We haven't texted in days. Who else knows? She shook her head. Nobody from here. It's been between us. Evan and me. Anne. And me. the admission landed like a muted thud, less about who else than the weight of her owning it. 2 nights later, I received a text from an unknown number, "We need to talk." Not about her. About you. Meet me tomorrow, 6 p.m., the parking lot by the hardware store. It was Evan. My first thought was, air trap. My second thought was, why would he want to talk about me? My third was, a curiosity. I went. He sat alone in his car, headlights dim, as if trying to keep the meeting in the shadow. He looked at me and didn't smile. "Mark," he said. "Thank you for meeting me." "No problem." I stood with my arms folded, the cold night air pinching my cheeks. He leaned forward. "I need you to understand something." "Enlighten me." He swallowed. I didn't realize she was asking for help till later. I thought she was lonely. I thought we were two people who talked. Then it got messy. "I never wanted to harm you." "You didn't realize." The words echoed. "You didn't pick up on any of this until after you'd been involved?" "I have my own life," he said. "I help people. It's what I do. But, there are things about me you should know." "What things?" His mouth pinched tight. "I'm not as innocent as you think. I've helped a client with legal paperwork. I know people who can make problems go away." He stopped. He was weighing whether to go deeper. "Spit it out," I said. "I have connections. People who can help. But also people who ask for payback if you cross lines." A cold sweat broke on my neck. Suddenly there were layers I hadn't imagined. Evan wasn't just a poet. He had access, networks I didn't know about. The thought that he might pull strings, or that Linda could be implicated in something worse than infidelity, slid into my head like oil. "Are you threatening me?" I asked. "No," he looked pained. "I'm warning you. If you push too hard, there are consequences. Not physical. Legal, financial, things that take longer but hurt more." I looked at him, at the person who had once soothed my wife's loneliness. I thought of our children, a house, our savings. I thought of the careful life we had built. For a moment, everything I'd counted on felt like sand. Then I thought of the way he had written to her, "He'll never know." How naive those words now sounded. I stood up. "You don't have my address," I said. "You don't have the right to threaten me." He said, softly, "I don't want to be the villain here." "Too late," I said. "You already are." We left the lot in different directions. I thought, on the drive home, about leverage, and lawyers, and what I might lose. I thought about the quiet settling over my house and how fragile trust is when a third person keeps knocking at the door. When I walked in, Linda was on the couch, phone in hand. She looked up, alarmed. "You met him?" she asked. I sat down slowly. "He warned me." She went white. "Warned you about what?" I didn't answer. Instead I asked, quietly, "Did you take anything? Money? Documents?" Her hands went to her mouth like she wanted to bite the words back. "No," she said. "Of course not." But the doubt had been planted. And in the quiet that followed, I realized there were more battles coming, ones that would be messy and public and possibly ruinous. Outside, the neighborhood hummed as if unaware. Inside, I felt the air thicken. I didn't sleep much that night. The conversation with Evan echoed like a looped message I couldn't delete. If you push too hard, there are consequences. Not physical. Legal, financial, things that take longer but hurt more. Was it a bluff? A scared man trying to sound powerful? Or did he have something real, something Linda might have given him? I stared at the ceiling in the guest room, heart thudding. I had always played fair. Paid bills. Worked hard. Stayed faithful. I never thought I'd have to strategize to protect myself from my own wife and a man who spoke in veiled threats. But now I had no choice. The next morning, I got in touch with an old acquaintance from work, Jake, a retired investigator who now freelanced. Not a private eye in the trenchcoat sense, but a guy who knew how to dig quietly. Off the record, he asked when I laid out the outline. Very, I replied. I'm not looking to ruin reputations. Just get clarity. If something's being hidden, I want to find it before it bites me. He nodded. I'll look into the guy. If there's leverage, or skeletons, you'll know. I gave him Evan's full name, known affiliations, and a timeline of when things likely began. Jake took notes on a legal pad and told me to give him 3 days. Meanwhile, I started making my own preparations. First, I contacted a family attorney. Not to file, yet, but to understand the lay of the land. I booked the appointment under my name only. I told Linda I was going in for a dental consult. She didn't ask questions. The attorney, a seasoned woman named Carla, listened carefully and never interrupted. When I finished the outline, she leaned back. Do you believe your wife gave him access to financial records? Business information? Anything that could be used against you? I don't know, I said. But he made it sound like he might have something. Or might do something. Carla nodded. I've seen this before. Manipulative third parties who feel entitled. Your goal now is insulation. What do I do? Start isolating your accounts. Cancel joint credit cards. Secure retirement assets. Create a log of all irregular activity, financial and otherwise. And Linda? She stays where she is until you decide. But document everything. From here forward, treat this like litigation is possible. It felt cold. But I knew she was right. That night, Linda noticed the change. You seem distant, she said as we sat at opposite ends of the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. I looked at her. I'm deciding what happens next. She nodded slowly. I know. You're allowed to. Evan met with me again, I said. Her face twitched. What? He warned me. Said he had connections. Legal leverage. Something he might use. She looked shaken. I didn't give him anything. I swear, Mark. I never shared our finances. Not documents. Nothing. You gave him enough, I said. Time. Intimacy. Access. Her eyes welled. I never thought he'd threaten you. You never thought any of this through, I snapped. She wiped a tear. Do you want me to leave? I thought about it. Then shook my head. Not yet. But I want a full disclosure. Written. Everything that happened. When. Where. How. Who paid. Who knew. And whether there's anything he could use. Her breath caught. You want me to write it all down? Yes, I said. Think of it like a deposition. I want the full truth. No more trickle truth. No more selective amnesia. I'll do it, she whispered. If that's what it takes. I nodded. Then we'll see. Over the next 2 days, Linda wrote. She'd sit at the dining table while I worked in the study. The sound of her typing was steady, hesitant, like someone pulling threads from a knot. By Wednesday, she handed me 10 pages, printed and signed. Her full confession. I took it in silence, went into the guest room, and read every word. she admitted to 5 physical meetups. 3 times at motels, once at a borrowed cabin Evan had access to, and once in our own house, while I was away on a business trip. That last one made my hands shake. She detailed the emotional arc, too, the messages, the phone calls, the gifts he gave her, a poetry book, a handmade necklace, a note left in her glove box. She claimed Evan never asked for money, but she did confess she once showed him our retirement folder to explain why she felt stuck. That was enough to make my jaw clench. He had seen it. Maybe even copied it. I put the pages in a locked drawer. The next morning, Jake called. Got something. I braced myself. Your guy Evan's been in hot water before. Minor stuff, civil complaints, nothing criminal, but he's had a restraining order from a past partner. Apparently got too involved. Used sensitive info in a smear campaign when it ended. Does he still have contacts? Questionable ones, Jake said. Nothing firm, but a few loose ties to sketchy legal consultants. Gray area stuff. He plays smart, but is petty when crossed. That tracked. Jake continued, if you want to make him nervous, let him know you know. Quietly. Without threats. I thanked him. Then sat on the back porch, watching fall leaves spin down from the trees, thinking about the next move. That weekend, I sent Evan a single message. Everything you've ever done leaves a trail. Consider our next steps carefully. He didn't reply. But the silence was reply enough. Back at home, I told Linda I was still considering the divorce. Her shoulders sagged. I understand. But we are not done yet. She blinked. What do you mean? I want you to come with me. To the attorney's office. We draft a formal agreement. A post-nup. You sign over full financial transparency and accept a no-contact clause. If anything happens again, or if I find out you've been dishonest in this report, it all goes to me. You leave with nothing. She stared. And if I don't? Then you walk now. No more chances. And I take the deposition with me to court. She swallowed hard. You really want me to stay that badly? No, I said. I want you to want to stay. Without him. Without lies. She nodded. Then I'll go. We met with Carla the next Monday. Linda was quiet but compliant. The postnup was drawn, signed, notarized. A copy given to each of us. Carla even added an agreement for therapy, 3 sessions required before any further legal action. Linda agreed to everything. When we left the office, she turned to me in the parking lot. I never meant to destroy you. I looked at her, steady. You didn't destroy me, Linda. You just reminded me that trust isn't given. It's earned. And you're in debt. That night, I slept in the main bedroom again. Not because things were repaired. But because the war had shifted. The threat was neutralized. The damage was known. The boundaries were set. Now came the test, could she live inside them? The weeks that followed felt like walking through the ruins of a house after a fire. The structure was still there, but everything inside had changed. Linda kept her word. She cut off contact with Evan. Or at least, she made it seem like she did. The messaging app was gone from her phone. Her logins were shared, her location was open, and she handed over every device willingly. But trust doesn't regrow on evidence alone. It grows, slowly, on consistency. She started going to therapy. First solo, then she invited me to join. I agreed, not because I believed we were saving the marriage, but because I needed to understand why. Not just why she cheated, but why I didn't see it coming. The sessions were civil. Tense, but productive. Linda admitted she'd started detaching years ago, quietly, privately, without telling me. Said she felt like a roommate. Invisible. Taken for granted. I told her I felt the same. We'd both assumed the other was still on board when we were really just coasting. But she was the one who reached outside. She was the one who built a parallel emotional life. She let another man in, not just into her messages, but into our timeline. Into our space. That couldn't be undone with therapy or tears. One evening, I sat on the back porch with a whiskey in hand. The sky was fading orange, a cold breeze nudging the trees. Linda came out, wrapped in a blanket, and asked if she could sit. I didn't answer. She sat anyway. I know I don't deserve peace yet, she said quietly. But I want to earn it. I nodded, slowly. I'm not sure if I want to rebuild. But I want clarity. I want peace too. Even if we find it separately. She looked down. So that's where we are? Maybe, I said. I haven't decided. I had spoken to Carla again, asked her to prepare both pathways, divorce papers and financial separation plans. She advised patience. Time reveals intent, she said. Don't rush either way. So I gave it time. Around mid-December, Linda received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. I found her sitting at the kitchen table reading it, her face pale. It's from Evan, she said. My heart stilled. He mailed it. Said he respected the boundaries. No digital trail. What does it say? She hesitated, then slid it across the table. It was short. Linda. I'm sorry. For everything. You were my soft place, but I didn't protect you the way I should have. Tell Mark I was wrong. You both deserve better than what I brought into your life. This is my last message. Evan. No threat. No veiled message. Just closure. I folded the letter and burned it in the fireplace later that night. By January, I made my choice. We sat across from each other at the attorney's office again. I'm not filing for divorce, I said. Not now. Linda's eyes welled up. You staying? I'm staying in the house. With boundaries. We are continuing therapy. But this is still conditional. She nodded, breath shaky. Whatever it takes. Carla added a legal note, a 6-month review clause. If I decided to proceed after that, the post-nup terms would hold. Linda agreed. Again. It's been 4 months since that day. We sleep in the same bed now, but it's not romantic. It's quiet. Two people who know they nearly lost everything and are learning what remains. She makes coffee in the mornings. I fix the porch light. We talk more. Some days it feels like progress. Others like pretending. Evan never resurfaced. The kids don't know. We decided not to tell them. They are grown. Living their own lives. Maybe one day I will. But for now, this is between us. What I learned. Betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes, it comes with whispers. Deleted messages. Long silences. And a partner who forgets how to reach for you. I learned that love doesn't survive on its own. It has to be fed, fought for, seen. We both forgot that. But I also learned that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's drawing lines and saying, you crossed this, and here's what happens next. I'm not the man I was before Linda's affair. I'm sharper. Less naive. But strangely, more at peace with uncertainty. She's working to rebuild trust. I'm working to see if I still want her at the end of the road. Time will tell. But for now, we sit on the porch, sip coffee, and live in the aftermath, with eyes open.